Well, let's focus more on China's position in this trade war and speak to Gavin Bade. He's a trade and economic policy reporter at the Wall Street Journal. Gavin, thanks so much for joining us on the program. First of all, I'd love to get your reaction to this new announcement from the White House that tariffs on China are going to be ramped up to 104%.
Well, I think it's going to be a big change. And actually, we should remember it will be more than 104% because we'll be on top of any tariffs that were imposed before President Trump's second term. So the Peterson Institute, an economic think tank in Washington, has estimated that there was an average effective tariff rate of about 21% at the beginning of Trump's term. So you add that 21% average tariff to the 104%, we're looking at an average tariff rate of about 125% on China. And that is a rate that, most economists would say will dissuade many people from buying products or many importers from sourcing from China. So we're looking at a very, very big economic dislocation getting ready to happen just at midnight here, Eastern time.
Well, experts are warning that this could very much spiral, and obviously there's a lack of diplomacy going on, which could make it even harder to de-escalate the situation. How far could this go, do you think?
I think we should be prepared to see more escalation on the China front here. The White House says that 50 to 70 nations, depending on who's talking, have come and asked to negotiate with President Trump over his reciprocal tariff plan and maybe bring down their own tariffs in hopes of getting some relief from the U.S. government. But that does not appear to be the case with China. They have decided to respond to President Trump's actions with tariffs and trade sanctions of their own. And they were saying today that they're ready to fight it out as long as it can go. So we have a high stakes game of chicken here. And I think it's anyone's guess as to which government blinks first.
Well, you said, China is trying to hold the line and trying to stand up to Washington despite others scrambling to negotiate. But you can't deny the fact that Beijing's own economy is fragile at the moment. I mean, obviously, it's the second largest economy in the world, but it has seen some challenges. Can China afford to keep on escalating the trade war as the US has?
I think that the Trump administration is betting that they cannot, and they think that they can sit out and wait out this trade war until China's economy buckles, and hopefully U.S. consumers and U.S. voters do not punish them too much in the meantime. But I must tell you, I'm on Capitol Hill in Washington today, and the President Trump's trade chief, Jamieson Greer, was just here before a Senate committee, and we heard a lot of concern and anxiety, even from Republican senators who are otherwise supportive of the president, about the inflationary impacts of these tariffs that will have on their states, particularly from senators who are up for re-election next year. So while none of them came out and said, I oppose what President Trump is doing here, there is growing anxiety and tension within the Republican Party about these tariffs.
And can China turn this around at all? I mean, we know that Trump is sort of after this complete reordering of the global trading system, and some in China do believe that this could be an opportunity for the country. It could try to turn this to its advantage and try and benefit from this crisis. Do you believe that's true? Can they turn this around?
I think there's always an X factor. There's always this unknown factor of negotiations with Trump, because while he is very protectionist and very aggressive about tariffs, he's also equally enamored with the idea of doing deals, right? And so in the first term, we saw him threaten large tariffs, nowhere near this large on China, and then go ahead and strike that what they called the phase one trade deal with China, which included a lot of commitments for the Chinese to buy U.S. agricultural products, U.S. energy products. Then the COVID pandemic hit, and China did not live up to all of the premises of that deal. So I think there will be a negotiation later this year, probably between Trump and Xi Jinping themselves, and then later with the economic teams. And we could see a deal come out of that. The question is does this tariff war poison the well so much, so to speak? Does it make the trade relations so bad that even, this big deal maker in Trump is not able to get something over the finish line? So I think there have been conflicting messages coming out of the White House about the possibility of deals, not only with China, but with any other country. And so it's very difficult to ascertain what the actual strategy is on China tariffs, on the rest of the world, if there even is a grand strategy.
And just to focus on the Chinese economy, it's tried to anticipate these tariffs. It announced a slew of measures to increase domestic consumption. Has it succeeded in improving domestic consumption, and could this help to mitigate the effects of these tariffs?
Yeah, I think the Chinese push to increase domestic consumption has been happening for years now, and they are really trying to build up the domestic consumption of their economy so they are not so reliant on the US. And I think the other thing that they're doing is trying to cultivate export markets outside of the United States, particularly in the global South. I mean, if you visit any other nation, they are awash in Chinese vehicles, whether it's, mopeds and motorcycles or cars themselves. Obviously, less so in Europe and none, hardly any in the United States at all. And so I think if the Chinese have to turn away from the largest consumer market in the world, in the United States, they're going to try to make it up by pouring their products on the developing world. And that may have the side effect of inhibiting some development from some of these global South nations, because instead of developing their own industries, they are going to be awash in Chinese exports.
Gavin, great to get your insight. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. It was good to get your
Happy to be here.
analysis.